The oversight committee was in Limpopo, both Bembe and Giani and the surrounding areas. We did really see some of the work that the department has been reporting to us. Indeed, the department is at work there. Of course, there are still one or two complaints of communities. That is normal. Communities can't necessarily clap hands on everything. The issue of the still remaining behind of the promise we made to the communities as to when we started building the dam in 1998 and later on in 2005. There is progress, though, as per the report that we received from the department, which was never challenged by the people of the area as to where the department is. Safe for them raising the point that the promised date of September was a critical point for them to believe that we might be making promises we are not going to achieve if indeed they take from the fact that we have been there since 1998 and we have not met any other targets. But you will remember that the minister did come to us and say that he's asking to be given space up until March 2023, which is what we said to them. Besides those points, all over the place, pipes are on the ground, excavating and backfilling is on the ground. We went to one area where we found that the department was even doing the pressure test. Water is coming out of the pipe on the pressure test, which will have the canal that will send water onto the dam on the other side of the dam. So indeed, Minister, we have seen that there is work being done. The only thing that we want to ask is that let us meet the March 2023 target, because if we fail to do that, all the good that they are thinking we can will fade. Having said that, good morning, and the meeting is duly opened. May I ask that we observe a moment of silence for mediation and or prayer? Good morning. Apologies, Nozipo.
Good morning, Chairperson. Yes, the minister is requesting to leave the meeting at 11 to attend to another engagement. The Deputy Minister Mahlobo has an engagement with the Portfolio Committee on COGTA starting at this time also, so he won't be part of this meeting. Ms. Tseke is required to attend the meeting of the Section 194 Ad Hoc Committee. She is on the platform, but we'll have to leave at 10 o'clock to attend to that meeting. That is all, Chairperson.
Okay.
Chairperson.
What is
morning, good morning, Chairperson, and good morning, colleagues. Chairperson, I request to be excused at 12. I've got to catch a flight to Cape Town for tomorrow's question session. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Is that Mr. Passon?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay.
Dis net so, voorsitter.
Ek hoor so. Goeiemorgen. Okay. We are now on the hands of the Minister of Department of Water and Sanitation to present to us the report which he wishes we speak about. Makwan.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, honorable members of the Portfolio Committee. Once more, it's an honor to present to you we are with the team here of DWS that will present, but just a few remarks. They will be led by DG, but just a few remarks. First one is that from the ministry point of view, which is something we've shared with the department, is that we see dams in the country as sources of economic development, economic growth in particular, in both urban and rural areas, for their contribution and support to the economy and efforts of the country in building the economy. And it is for that reason that dams are very important, not just for potable water, but all of us know that raw water supports the agri-industry on one hand in their own subsectors, but it also supports other economic or other industries, especially the mining industry, but also other industries. It is for that reason, but it also supports human beings. Dams support human beings who are also a critical role of our economy via, one, the fact that water is right, water is life. And as they leave, they are then able to play their role in economic growth of the country. And therefore, we have to do everything to conserve water in a context of South Africa being a water scarce country. And dams, therefore, are critical storages or critical infrastructure to store water. And more than any other thing, we need to build more of them, especially in the eastern side of the country, right from the far south in the Eastern Cape, eastern parts of the Eastern Cape, right up to Limpopo, eastern side of Limpopo, because of the high rainfall that these areas are receiving, or that they receive each year, which is higher than the average other areas in terms of receipt of water. We need to collaborate, and we know there are people in the academic circles who want to meet with us to make proposals how we can hold water from getting into the sea the way it is happening. But by and large, it is via dams, and for that matter, they really are very important. I'm not going to go to projects, but let me go to safety and go to other uses. The first leg in terms of with regard to dam management that we are emphasizing and would want to see improvements on and are working towards that is, of course, dam safety in terms of this infrastructure, not disintegrating anytime or in whatever conditions. And we regard this as very important, not only in terms of life, downwards should a disaster hit on any of the walls, but generally for stability and for certainty. We take our duty in terms of ensuring that dams are always operated and maintained using the most advanced ways, latest to be particular in terms of ensuring that there's always they're always managed with safety in mind. But the other leg that we are working on is dams are also important, as I said, for economy in terms of tourism, in terms of leisure, for locals, close and distant, but also in terms of ventures to self-support. We are not yet at the required level of both legs, in terms of our objectives. We know that some dams are operating in terms of management with very, very scanty staff. And also in terms of economic benefits from dams that are potential, we still are very low. But that we have those two main objectives. One, to exploit optimally the potential for economic growth on their own and around them, but also to ensure that they're kept as safely as possible, both in terms of structurally, but also just generally in terms of how they are managed. Of course, there are a number of dams which don't belong to the state, dams that are privately owned. We have oversight on them in terms of applying regulations and compliances, and even declarations that they exist. But we also have oversight on them, especially around their compliance insofar as use of water within the legal framework is concerned. There are often concerns in communities where people complain that dam owners in the agricultural sector, they use either more water than they are required to, or they don't comply generally, or they even establish dams illegally, all of which has an impact downstream. Now, all of these matters need to be covered. And of course, there's the last one, which is a concern, environmental issues around dams. There are these alien trees around dams and rivers leading to dams that are proving, especially or including in the Eastern Cape, especially Coca Dam, and of course other dams that are proving to be causing a lot of vulnerability on the retainment capacity of the dams for water in those areas. And it's something that we have had a discussion with IDT with a view to developing a project that could assist, because we don't have money to employ people to deal with alien trees. It used to be an area that environment was covering, Department of Environment, but they are no longer able to because of funds and so on. So we have to look elsewhere, because there is a proven science that says that alien trees are very detrimental to the retaining capacity of dams. They need to be removed. They need to be avoided all the time, so that water levels are always at the required level. Now, with that, Chair, I would ask DG to deal with the matters in more detail. DG, thank you very much.
Thank you. The DG must not follow the minister by not showing the face first.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning, honourable members and honourable Chair, Minister, Deputy Minister and colleagues. Joy, can you bring up the presentation, please?
But in the process, show your face, DG.
Joy, are you bringing up the presentation? Here it comes.
That's, you look beautiful, it's fine.
Thank you, Chairperson. So we've been requested this morning to present to the Portfolio Committee on, just go to the first slide, please, Joy, the cover slide. Cover slide, please, Joy. We've been asked to present on water on dam safety and the status of failing dams. Let's go to the next slide. So in our presentation, I'm just going to give a bit of an introduction and explain how these functions work in the department. And then I'm going to hand over to some of our specialists to provide more detail, including on the regulation side, on the classification and licensing process, on dam safety evaluations, and the state of dams in South Africa. And then on the implementation side, what we're doing with regard to the management and operation of dams and the construction of new dams. Let's go to the next slide, please. And then also, in addition to this, we've also added some information about the unfortunate incident which happened at the Jagersfontein tailings dam recently. And we've provided some background to that and the actions that the department took historically in relation to that incident. This slide is the introductory slide. It explains that within the Department of Water and Sanitation, there are two functions related to dams. One is a regulatory function, and the other is a management and operation and construction function and maintenance function. We have a regulatory branch in the department, and regulation of dam safety is part of the functions of the regulatory branch. The DDG for regulation is here in the meeting. His name's Polani Zwani. So we have an internal regulator for dam safety, which operates independently because it's in a different branch to those people who do the management and operation and maintenance of the dams. And you'll see later in the presentation that they certainly don't pull any punches in terms of their critique of the performance of the part of the department which does the maintenance and operation of the dams, which is very healthy. It's something that we want to keep, to have even though it's within the department, to have the regulator, the dam safety regulator function to be robust and to be very frank in its criticism of the maintenance and management of the dams by the other part of the department. So as I indicated, the regulator is within the regulation branch. It's located in something called the Dam Safety Office within the regulation branch. And then the branch which is responsible for actually managing and maintaining and operating the dams and building new dams is our infrastructure branch. And the acting DDG for our infrastructure branch, Leonardo Manis, is also in the meeting. They are the owners of the infrastructure and responsible for the maintenance and management and operation of the dams, and they need to respond to the findings of the regulator with regard to dam safety. So with those few words of introduction, I'm going to hand over to someone from our dam safety office, Wally Ramagopa, who's our director for dam safety, who's going to take us through a number of slides describing what we do with regard to the regulatory function and what their findings have been both. And it's important to remember that this regulatory branch within the department doesn't only, as indicated by the minister, doesn't only regulate and monitor dam safety with regard to the department's dams, it does so with regard to all dams in the country, including dams run by the private sector and by industry. After Wally has presented on the regulatory function, Leonardo is going to come in and talk about his part of it, which is how we are managing and operating the dams and what we're doing in terms of new dam construction. And in his response, he will respond to some of the critiques that the regulator will be making, that Wally will be making. And then we'll also have another colleague, Nkumeleng Mokeni, who's our Director for Regulation in the Free State Province, who will present to us some slides on the Jagersfontein incident. So with those few words of introduction, Wally, please come in on the behalf of the regulator.
Thank you, DG. Good morning to Honorable Minister and Honorable members, as well as colleagues. I'm going to start first by explaining when we talk about dam safety, especially in terms of Chapter 12 in National Water Act, what is it that we mean? The department regulates the safety of dams classified as dams with the safety risks. Those will be dams that are able to store at least 50,000 cubic meters or 50 megaliters and have a minimum height, a vertical height of 5 meters. So a dam that doesn't satisfy these two criteria, it is not a dam with a safety risk. So we don't register and regulate those dams. However, the department does regulate the authorization process in terms of Section 21B for storage of those dams. But under Chapter 12, which is a chapter specifically on the safety of dams, we look at those two criteria, that is the 50 megaliters, as well as the vertical height of 5 meters. The minister may also declare a dam or a group of dams that does not satisfy those two criteria. I'll give an example. If, for argument's sake, there's a dam lower than 5 meters, but due to the risk assessment of that dam, should it fail, people downstream may be affected, specifically maybe potential loss of life or destruction of infrastructure. The minister is empowered to actually classify such a dam to be a dam with a safety risk. The regulations were also published in 2012, supporting the Chapter 12 of the Act, which is the how-to on how to manage the safety of dams in South Africa. There is a specialist unit within the department, which is the Directorate Dam Safety Regulation, within the branch, as the Director General has said, that looks into these functions of regulating dams in South Africa. Next slide, please, ma'am. The responsibility in terms of Chapter 12 of the department in the regulation of dams with the safety risks, we are responsible for registration of dams as well as classification of all dams. I will be in a later slide explain what do we mean by classification, because various dams have got different sizes and different risk profiles. So we are able to actually classify the different categories. We've got 3 categories, that is category 1, 2, and 3. I will explain the process in doing that. We are also responsible for managing the safety designs by issuing licenses, where we look at the designs, the construction of new dams, as well as the alteration and repair of existing dams, to ensure that those dams are designed using the best standards, the best engineering practices, and then we issue a number of licenses, which includes license to construct a new dam, licenses to construct, to alter an existing dam, that is to modify a dam that is in existence. In the case of enlargement of dams, such as the Hazelmere Dam and Glenwilliam Dam, we do issue such licenses to enlarge an existing dam. Also, when there is a damage on a dam that needs to be repaired, we do issue licenses to repair a dam, but there is a process whereby, in the case of an imminent disaster, we don't have to go through the lengthy process of verifying the designs. We can actually allow the owner of a dam that is in total disrepair to do the repair work on an immediate or agency basis without following the lengthy process of having to submit the designs, so that loss of life can be prevented. We also issue license to impound dams. This is a process that happens once the dam has been constructed. The owner of a new dam is not allowed to start impounding. We have to ensure that the dam was constructed as designed before a license to impound is issued to the dam owner. Also, dams, when they need to be decommissioned, we issue licenses to decommission a dam, because we wouldn't want to see where a dam owner goes on with a plant machine like a bulldozer or tilby just to remove the structure, because that structure, if it's not been decommissioned properly, it may actually cause a catastrophic failure and affect the lives of the community living downstream. The Dam Safety Regulation Office is also responsible for assessing the dam safety evaluation reports. These are the reports that are compiled by an approved professional person, particularly on category 2 and category 3 dams. I will explain the different categories. What do we mean by that? The dam safety evaluation reports are being conducted once every 5 years on each and every dam. That is not a requirement for category 1 dams, but for category 2 and category 3 dams, it is compulsory. We are also responsible for approving the professional persons, and that process requires us to go through the application and also consult the Engineering Council of South Africa, that is EXA, before a professional person can be approved to carry out a task in terms of Section 117 of National Water Act. We also have a register of APPs, then we are the custodian of that register. The department is also responsible for carrying out what we call the dam safety compliance monitoring inspections. These are inspections that we carry out as a department to dam owners to check whether the reports that were compiled by APPs, they will have findings and recommendations, those reports. So our function doesn't stop in receiving the report and assessing them. We need to follow through and check whether the dam owners do implement the recommendations of the APPs to ensure that the dams are safe. We can go to the next slide. The next slide talks about the classification and licensing processes. As I've said before, that before a dam is registered, we need to be able to classify that dam. The classification process starts with determining the size of the dam. As I've said, that a dam with a safety risk is a dam with a minimum height of 5 meters and able to store more than 50,000 cubic meters. Then that means we start from 5 meters in terms of the height. So a dam that has got a vertical height of 5 meters, but not exceeding 12 meters. In terms of size, we refer to that dam as a small dam. The following one would be a medium dam of 12 meters, but not exceeding 30 meters. And then all large dams are dams higher than 30 meters. They are classified as large dams. And then after the size classification, we do what we call a risk assessment to look at the hazard rating potential. Hazard rating potential meaning that in the event that there is a catastrophic failure of a dam, that means we simulate a dam break. We do a dam break analysis to check, should a dam fail, what is the negative impact that that dam will cause downstream. We look at the potential loss of life that will be caused by such a failure, the economic loss, the adverse impact on resource quality. So this is a risk-based assessment that we do. In the event that the dam will not cause any loss of life, the hazard rating will be classified as low. But loss of life exceeding 1 but not more than 10, that will be a significant hazard potential rating. But should a dam failure cause loss of life of more than 10 people, then the hazard rating potential is classified as high. On the table below, I will try to do the pointer maybe so that I can, I'm not sure if honorable members can see the cursor. If you look at the small dam, usually all dams will be regarded as small dams if they are all have got a low hazard potential. But as soon as the hazard rating raises to significant and high, that small dam now does no longer belong to the category of 1. It now becomes a category 2 dam with a significant and high hazard potential. When it comes to medium dam, all medium dams, they start being a category 2. So a medium dam with a low hazard potential as well as significant hazard potential, those are category 2 dams. But as soon as the hazard potential goes too high, now we put that medium dam in a much higher rating or category, which is a category 3 dam. And the last one, which is large dams, by default, all large dams, regardless of the hazard potential rating, all large dams, that is dams higher than 30 meters, are all category 3 dams. So that is how we do the classification of dams. Once that process is done, it's only then that the dam owner then can start applying for a license. And then we will know how to treat that license, because we treat different license applications differently depending on the category of dams. The slide in front of us here shows the registration of dams in our database. The data as of October 2022 indicates that currently we have 5,662 registered dams with a safety risk in our database, of which 4,451 are owned by the agricultural sectors. That's mostly the farmers. That makes up 79% of the dams in our database. You will be able to see that the Department of Water and Sanitation, out of the 5,662, they do own 323 local government, that is the municipalities, they own 350. Other state dams, here we refer to departments such as Department of Correctional Services, they do own dams, as well as the Department of Agriculture, they own dams. So we classify those as other state departments. Your water boards, that is your Rand Water, your Umgeni Water, your Amatola, they also do own dams that are classified as dams with a safety risk. They have about 122 of those dams. And then we have the other sector, which is the mines, industry, and businesses. So together they own 327 dams. So this is a breakdown of the various sectors, the way we classify them in our register. If you go to the next slide, honorable members will be able to see that though the department owns only 6% of the dams in our register, when we look at the storage capacity of those dams, the combined storage of dams owned by the Department of Water and Sanitation is about 87% of the total gross storage capacity of dams in the country. We have about 34 billion cubic meters of water stored in the 323 dams owned by DWS. Then when you look at the last graph, which is the dams owned by the agricultural sector, though they own 79% of the dams in our register, but their dams, due to their very small sizes, the combined capacity is about 6% of the gross storage capacity of dams storage in our database. Municipalities is about 3%. Other state departments is less than 1% in terms of storage volumes. The water boards, it's 2.4%, as well as the mines agriculture is about 2%. We can go to the next slide, ma'am. The next slide shows through the years since 1986 that the number of dams registered in our database has been increasing at an average of about 860 dams every 10 years. The reason why we started in 1986 is that in terms of the old Water Act, the first dam safety regulation were published in 1986, regulation R1560. So that is when the department started actually having a formalized process of regulating dams. So it started in 1986. So we've been monitoring the trend of registration of those dams till today, where we are sitting at 5,662 dams. We can go to the next slide, ma'am. The next slide now, here I'm going to talk a bit about the dam safety evaluations. This is quite important because this is the way we are able to determine how safe the dams that is, the existing dams that we have in our register are. This is the process that normally, as I said, that category 2 and category 3 dams, there is a compulsory process whereby the owner of those dams must appoint an approved professional person, meaning not any other engineer can do these evaluations. The professional person must be approved by the Minister of Water and Sanitation after consultation with the Engineering Council. So it is compulsory that once every 5 years, a dam safety evaluation is being carried out in those category 2 and category 3 dams. Some of the owners, they do carry out the GSEs on category 1 dams. We do accept them, but that is not a compulsory process. It is compulsory for category 2 and 3. So that interval, it may be increased by the Director General to a period not exceeding 10 years. But obviously, the Director General will have to take into consideration the condition of such dams. If a dam is in a very poor condition, it will not be advisable for the Director General to increase the period to more than 5 years, because we really need to look closely into how safe that particular dam is. The report are either being accepted by the Dam Safety Office or rejected. This is the process whereby we assess the reports that are coming from the APPs, the Dam Safety Evaluation reports. We have to study those reports, assess them. Once we are done with that assessment, we have to assign what we call a condition rating system. I will explain what that is. We have a condition rating system starting from A to F. I do have a slide that will explain a little bit better what that means. And then the dam owner must implement the recommendations of the APP. If the APP says the dam has got shortcomings on the foundation, I'm making an example with the foundation, or the spillway capacity is not adequate, we will be in possession of that report. And then it is our duty also to follow up and ensure that the owner of such a dam implement the recommendations of the approved professional person, because it will not be a very good practice to be accepting reports, go through them, assess them, and then we don't follow and check whether the dams are safe. Dams that will normally be in a very good condition, those are the dams that we will be advising the Director General to extend the interval process to a period of about 7.5 years, not doing them every 5 years. But the dam in worse conditions, we may even request or direct the owner to report once every 6 months on the implementation process of the recommendations. What I was explaining now is what we call the dam safety compliance monitoring inspections. This part, it is actually in the departmental approved performance plan. It is part of our APP. We do have a number of dams that are on the APP for compliance monitoring inspections. So the department will have to do that. We can go to the next slide, ma'am. The next slide shows that in the past 5 financial years, starting from 2017-18 financial year up until financial year 2021-2022, it shows a trend of the number of dam safety evaluations we have been receiving as a department from the owners. You will see that in the first year of the last 5 years, about 159 DSE reports were received. And then we were only able at the time to assess 154 of the DSEs received. And the 154 in the first column here, it's not 154 of the 159. Due to challenges that we have in terms of capacity in the office, we were actually doing 154 of some of the backlog of the dams that we could not do previously. And then the number, you can see that it's actually going down because of the workload that we do have in terms of other functions such as licensing. And then we were not able to do all the reports that we were receiving. So that is quite a challenge that we still have, but we have a plan on how we're going to address that. We will be talking about that towards the end of the presentation. Currently, we do have a cumulative backlog of about 474 dam safety evaluations that we have received, but not yet assessed. So the plan that I will be talking about, it is to actually deal with that backlog so that we can be able to be on top of our game as far as knowing how safe the dams are, using the reports that we are receiving from the approved professional persons. We can move to the next slide. The next slide talks about the dams that we have in our database. Out of the 5,662 dams, 2,420 of those dams are category 2 and category 3 dams. Now, these are the dams that must be subjected to a compulsory dam safety evaluations by an APP once every 5 years. You will be able to see, honorable members will be able to see that we have broken down the 5,662 dams into category 1, category 2, and category 3 dams. Now, the category 2...
But the slide is blank, Mas. There's nothing on the slide.
I'm not sure if... I can see from my side, I'm not sure if honorable members and other colleagues can see the slide.
Yeah, there we are. There we are.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Yes, the category 2 and category 3 dams, those are the dams that must be subjected to a dam safety evaluations every 5 years. We've got about more than 2,000 of category 2 dams, of which 67% of those category 2 dams are owned by the farmers, mostly the farmers, the agricultural sector. And then when it comes to category 3 dams, those are your large dams, as well as medium dams that have got a high hazard potential rating. Mostly of those dams, we've got 305, with more than 50% of those dams owned by the department. That explains why most of the dams owned by the department has got such huge storage capacities, because mostly they are very large dams. The Val and the Orange catchment, they've got about 924 dams, of which those 924 dams, they have a total combined storage capacity of 51% of all the water stored in the dams registered in the country. The catchment with the least amount of storage, it is the Ingomati Usutu. It's a catchment management agency in Mpumalanga province. Now, we as a department, we've started actually now with a profiling of compliance status of dams. But to do that, we started by profiling firstly the first top 20 largest dams by size in each sector. By each sector, I mean the Department of Water and Sanitation, water boards, and agriculture. We looked at the top 20 largest dams in those sectors to look at the compliance level as well as how safe those dams are. We can move to the next slide. The next slide indicates the condition rating systems that I have previously explained. We have 6 rating systems. This is the rating systems that we assign to a dam after we have gone through the dam safety evaluation reports that is submitted by the EPPs. A dam with a condition rating A, that dam will be regarded as a dam in good condition, which means that only routine maintenance is required to be carried out in those dams. And then a dam with a category, with a classification of a B, it's a dam in reasonable condition. And then the one that has got a worst condition will be a dam with a condition rating of F. That is a dam that is unsafe. Such dams, we do issue directives to restrict operation. By that, I mean we are able to issue a directive to the owner for them to operate the dam at lower storage capacities. We may indicate that it must be operated at 25% operation capacity, or even to empty that dam until that dam has been made safe, depending on the assessment and the recommendations, as well as the findings from the approved professional persons. Currently, we have about 7 of the dams classified as unsafe with a condition rating of F. This is the numbers that we've been able to do with the assessment of the dam safety evaluations in the past. Since 2013-14 to until the last financial year, we have received a total of 1,508 dam safety evaluation reports by APPs. But also during the same time, we've only been able to assess about a total of 898 GSE reports. So there is a little bit of a backlog there. Of the ones that we have already done, 31 of the dams that we have assessed out of the 898 have been assigned with a condition rating A. Those are the dams that will be a dam in good condition. But most of our dams will be in the category C, classification C, which it's not a worse condition, but is a dam that is aged already now, that needs a little bit of maintenance and refurbishment. And then we have 7 dams with a condition rating of F that I've explained. So this is actually a breakdown of what we've been able to do in the past few years, since 2013 up until 2021. This condition rating system, we've started this in 2016-17. So you will see that from 2016, that is where we have the most number of dams, including the following year, that we have been able to assign a condition rating. That is when we started with the condition rating system. Previously, this was not done. And then in 2020-2021, we have a very low number due to COVID restrictions, a lot of APPs not being able to conduct dam safety evaluations due to the lockdowns. But we hope that the numbers will improve as we have been out of the COVID now. The next slide now talks about the state of the top 20 largest dams owned by the department. Can we move to the next slide, ma'am? It talks to the state of the top 20 largest dams owned by the Department of Water and Sanitation. As we have indicated that DWS owns 323 dams. Now, out of the 323, 286 of those dams are classified as category 2 and category 3 dams, meaning they must be subjected to a 5-yearly dam safety evaluations by an approved professional person. Now, out of the top 20 largest dams in the country, unfortunately, only 2 dams were found to be compliant with that. That is 10%. As the DG has said that we wouldn't want to treat the dams owned by the DWS as special child. We need to be robust in our criticism. That is why we are presenting to indicate that we're not that happy with the compliance level of 2% out of the top 20 largest dams in the country. The province with the most number of dams will be KwaZulu-Natal. They have about 7 dams, with only 1 out of those 7 complying with the requirements of having a dam safety evaluation report by an APP. The province with the most number of dams will be also the Western Cape, with only 3 compliance, followed by the Eastern Cape and Mpumalanga. This is the breakdown per province that shows where the most number of dams are. That is KwaZulu-Natal, the Free State, as well as in Mpumalanga. Only the top 20, not all 323. So this is the compliance level of dams belonging to DWS. We will now go to the next slide, which talks to the dams owned by the municipalities. The municipalities, they own 350 dams, of which 285 are classified as category 2 and category 3 dams. Now, out of the top 20, 5 dams are compliant with the dam safety evaluations requirements. That is a quarter out of the top 20. With most of those dams being in the Western Cape, 3 out of those 7 in the Western Cape complying to the dam safety evaluation requirements. So the department has already started actually in the past with commencement of enforcement actions against non-compliant municipalities. Those will be including the administrative actions through our enforcement unit, as well as civil and criminal enforcement. This is the breakdown of the dams that we have previously indicated that only a quarter of the top 20 largest are complying. The most number of dams being in the Western Cape, with only 3 out of the 4 non-compliant. We can move to the next slide. The next slide is a breakdown of the top 20 largest dams owned by other state departments, as well as the water boards. Only 1% of the top 20 largest dams owned by other state dams, that is the Department of Agriculture, as well as the Department of Correctional Services. Now, only 1% is complying to the dam safety evaluations. And those will be dams owned by the Department of Agriculture. Correctional Services, they seem to be non-compliant with the dam safety regulations. So out of the 20, only 2 is complying. And then the Limpopo Department of Agriculture owns most of the dams. You will see that in the column on the left-hand side and the table on the left-hand side, in Limpopo, we've got about 9 dams owned by other state departments, of which only 1 is compliant. One of the dams that is actually keeping us awake, that we are very, very, very worried about, it is Mets Dam. This is a dam in Khasikororo village, not too far from Zanin. We have, as a department, issued a Section 118 directive. That is a directive directing the owner of such a dam to carry out dam safety evaluations, and also to lower the water level in that dam, because that dam is not in good condition at all. It is a dam that can be classified as a condition rating F. In the beginning of the year, we have also issued a directive in terms of Section 118, whereby the departmental construction team was able to go to that dam to break a portion of the spillway so that we can lower the water level to avoid the piping failure that we have seen. And then we've also tried to engage the HOD in the department, in the province, and then we've been struggling with that. That is the reason why the department has now even opened a criminal case. There is a case number that is shown there. It's a dam that we are very, very worried about, and then we are monitoring it. The enforcement unit also has been to site in the last week as well to engage the Department of Agriculture in Limpopo. Only 45% of dams owned by the water boards are compliant. So that means out of the top 20, only 9 will seem to be compliant to the dam safety evaluations. Most of the dams owned by the water boards are in KwaZulu-Natal. That will be the Ungeni water, and then followed by the Western Cape. We can move to the next slide. The next slide now talks about the top 20 largest dams owned by the agricultural sector, as well as mines, business, and industry. As we've said, 79% of dams owned in our register are owned by the agricultural sector. Out of those dams, 1,435 are classified as category 2 and category 3 dams. That is 32% of the dams owned by this sector, the agricultural sector. Now, out of the top 20 largest in that sector, only 45% has shown compliance. That is 9 out of 11. And the three of the dams in the agricultural sector have never been evaluated by APP. We have taken further steps in terms of our enforcement processes to compel the owners and to also start with the civil and criminal actions, enforcement actions. At least half of dams in the sector, that is the mines industry sector, are in Mpumalanga, mostly owned by Sasol, owned by Eskom, as well as the mines. So those ones are mines owned by the industries and the mines. Only 30% of these dams were found to be compliant. That is 6%. I mean, 6 dams out of the top 20 were found to be compliant. The next slide. This is a summary of what we've been presenting now that analyzes the performance or the analysis of the top 20 largest dams in each province. The department will now commence with an operation of conducting inspections on these dams to intensify the compliance level of those owners that were found to be non-compliant. Both we have enforcement units in the regional offices, that is in the provinces, as well as national office from head office. So we have started with enforcement blitz, especially in the Western Cape, because they do have a lot of dams in the province, in the Western Cape, in the Brede Horits, CMA, as well as the Berg Olifants. So the department is currently working on strengthening the capacity. We have already started now with the SOP, the standard operating procedure on dams that were found to be unlawfully constructed as well. The breakdown now shows that of the top 20 largest dams, on average, there's only 26% compliance. And that is a worrying trend that we have seen. We can go to the next slide. In the next slide, we talk about the dams under construction. These will be dams that we have been issued with various licenses, including licenses to construct, license to alter, license to repair, and license to enlarge. Currently, in our register, we have 40 dams that we are monitoring that we've issued with licenses. That is 40 dams under construction. Most of these dams are in the Western Cape, that is the Brede Horits and the Berg Olifants water management areas. Now, the two water management areas have also most of the number of dams that have been illegally or unlawfully constructed. By unlawfully constructed, we mean they were constructed without the owners of the dam being in possession of the valid licenses to construct. In some cases, even the owners, they do not even have a water use license. That is a license issued in terms of Chapter 4 of National Water Act. We have now drafted an SOP, and we have been workshopping that standard operating procedure on how to deal with unlawfully constructed dams. In this week, we will be actually doing the last workshop before the SOP can be routed for approval. And then the colleagues in the regions, they will be able to now be guided as to how to carry out the processes of inspecting and also declaring dams to be unlawful and how to deal with the repercussions. Now, illegally constructed dams are dams that normally, some of them will be designed, some will be designed, but the designs will not have been approved by the department. So those dams that would have been designed by an APP, we do have a process in the SOP where we can actually test, doing a lot of other material test investigation and assessments before we can regularize those dams. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that enforcement actions will not be taken against the owners and the APPs, meaning the engineers that were involved with the unlawful construction of those dams. Dams that were found to be inacceptable construction, design status or construction methods, those dams must be demolished. And then we do have a process to carry out in demolishing those dams. Now, the picture here shows the dams that are under construction in the different water management areas. You will see, honorable colleagues, members will see that in Brede Horits and Berg Olifants, those are where most of the dams that we have issued with licenses are located. That is in the Western Cape. In Komati Sutu, there's only one dam that we have issued with a license that is under construction currently. Under construction also means that we have not issued those dams with a license to impound. Once we issue a license to impound, that dam now ceases to be a dam under construction because the owners and the APPs, they will have to issue a completion certificate to the department so that we can close the chapter of those dams being dams under construction and to start now implementing other regulatory methods such as dam safety evaluation reports that must be submitted by an APP. For dams that are newly constructed, the dam safety evaluation report must be submitted within 3 years of being constructed. So thereafter, it's only then that the 5-yearly dam safety evaluations will be carried out. Now, if we move our focus onto dams owned by the mining sector, we have 327 dams owned by mines, businesses, and industry. Now, 15 of those dams are registered as mine residue dams. Now, a mine residue dam will be dams that is either tailings dams or ash deposit dams. Those are dams that we regard as mine residue dams. Since in the last 6 years or so, the department only considered dams with a pool or free water on top of tailings in excess of 50,000 cubic meters to be regarded and registered with dams with the safety risk. meaning if a tailings dam doesn't have a pool on top of the tailings of water exceeding 50 megaliters, those dams were not being regarded as dams with a safety risk. There has been a lot of debates in the registration of these tailings, and the debates were actually circulating along the tailings materials. By that, I mean, if a dam has got a what we call a degree of saturation exceeding 100%, meaning the dam is highly saturated, the tailings is highly saturated such that the material can actually flow, and it, such as the sludge that we've experienced, unfortunately, in Jagersfontein. Now, that dam, though it's not a pool of water, free water on top of the tailings, it is the material that is highly saturated. Such a dam should have been regarded as a dam with a safety risk. But previously, as I've said in this second period, that those dams were not regarded as dams with a safety risk. So we do have currently about 337 mine residue deposit dams in our database. We have it in our database, but we have not registered such dams as dams with a safety risk. So some tailings out of those 337 may have consolidated at this time. Consolidated meaning they would have settled and the tailings would have dried up. But now the question is, do we register those dams that have dried up and consolidated as dams? Now, this is the assessment that we as the department, we are in the process of undertaking to assess those 337 dams to see whether the material stored in those dams is a material that can be regarded as highly saturated or and dried up, or is a material that can easily flow and cause loss of life should that kind of a dam fail. We have been having engagement at international level with the ICOT, which is the International Committee on Large Dams, where South Africa is a member country. We're sharing ideas with other countries such as Brazil, where they also have had a number of tailings failing. Now they are managing those differently, and then we are learning a lot from such member countries. We can go to the next slide. In the next slide is just a graphical representation of the dams that I've mentioned, the 337. 15 are regarded as mine residue deposit dams. 10 of those dams are industrial residue deposits. Those will be dams that will be owned by the likes of Sasol. We have ash deposit facilities. It's only one that we've registered. I think this one belongs to Eskom. And other dam types, we're referring to dams owned by mines and industry as either return water dams, pollution control dams, even clean water dams. So that those dams, we are registered in those dams as dams owned by the by the industry of the mining industry, the business and the industries. Now, when it comes to the regulation of approved professional persons, the department, as I have indicated, the minister in terms of section 117 is empowered to approve a professional person to carry out specific tasks on the dams. Those are the tasks including dam safety evaluations, as well as design and construction of dams. Now, before the minister may approve such a professional person, the minister must consult the Engineering Council of South Africa. Now, the Act also allows the minister to establish a register of APPs. Currently, in our register, we have we have 93 APPs active in our register of APPs. 6 of the APPs are employed by the Department of Water and Sanitation, and most of the APPs in our register have mostly retired. They have 62% being older than 60 years. Now, the department has started with what we call an APP compliance audit. This is where we check the compliance level of APPs, because in the past, we have seen whereby APPs will be designing a dam, and then after designing the dam, we issue them with a license. Then we don't get quarterly reports on the progress of construction. So this is where we monitor how construction is being implemented. This is in addition to our requirement for us to go actually to site to see the construction progress, to ensure that the dams that are being constructed are constructed as designed. We have in the past few months have seen a dam in the Western Cape whereby it was issued with a license based on the design that we approved. But as we monitor construction, the dam was not being constructed as designed, and we have actually stopped construction because we cannot allow a dam to be constructed under false pretense. We will be thinking that the dam is being constructed as designed, whereas the dam is they're using other types of material, inferior material, and then we have to actually regulate such dams. Now, in regulating the APPs, we are able to even suspend or remove from the register the APPs that were found to be involved in the illegal construction of dams. Currently, we have one APP that we have referred to EXA for, in terms of the regulation that requires the department to consult EXA before suspending or removing an APP from the register. So we are having a case in the Western Cape where we are busy with that process. Now, transformation as well is something that bothers us. If we look at the demographics, out of the 93 APPs in our register, only 6% is African. And then with mostly females not being approved as APPs, we have only 3% or 3 white females, 0 African females in the APP fraternity. So mostly it's males, but the fact that the regulation regarding especially the approved professional person has been in place since 1986. And then we have amended the regulation in 2012. But we can see that there isn't a lot of African professionals that are coming onto the sector. So in terms of addressing that, we have seen an impediment in the regulation, particularly regulation 45.1, which requires the person that wants to be approved as a professional person to first be appointed by a dam owner. So it means myself, if I want to become an APP, I cannot apply if there is no specific project that I can apply against. So we have been receiving a lot of complaints from industry colleagues asking how do they actually get into the register. And then unfortunately with the regulations currently as is, it's not allowing a person to just apply. But what we have seen, what we have done also, it is to work together with the Engineering Council of South Africa, the EXA, whereby currently now a feasibility study has been approved by the council for EXA to actually develop what a specified category called dam specialists. So this will allow a lot of people, a lot of civil engineers that are in the dam engineering fraternity to be able to register as dam specialists, and that will allow them to be approved by the minister to become APPs. So we are trying to unlock and remove those gates that we have seen, especially in the regulations regarding the approval of the professional persons. The next slide talks about the challenges and solutions that we have in the department, starting with the non-compliance to carry out the mandatory dam safety evaluations by APPs and the dam owners. Now, the department is intensifying enforcement actions, including administrative actions, civil and criminal. Also, the capacity building process by our enforcement actions has been instituted, whereby our department goes to the various NPA offices in the country to sort of build capacity and educate them about the National Water Act and the requirements, so that if there is an enforcement case that has been referred for a criminal enforcement, now the NPA is empowered to be able to successfully prosecute the dam owners as well as all those people who are involved in breaking the laws regulating the safety of dams in South Africa. Unlawful construction of dams is also a pain to us, whereby dams are being constructed without licenses or water use licenses. As I've already indicated, that there is an SOP to tackle these types of transgressions that is being workshopped and will be approved before the end of this quarter. There are various remedies in that SOPs depending on the circumstances surrounding the unlawful construction of dams. Enforcement actions are being taken involving the owners and the dam and the engineers as well. The inability of the Directorate Dam Safety Regulations, it is popularly known as the Dam Safety Office, to carry out the inspections during construction. That has been addressed after the approval of the current structure of the department to capacitate the Dam Safety Office with engineers that will be doing a lot of this work. Currently, with the workload that we do have and the challenges with the capacity, we are not able to do everything that we should be doing. And then we do know our challenges. We are accepting that we've got challenges, and then we are doing something about it. The Dam Safety Office also depends mostly on the support from the regions to carry out certain functions, such as the dam safety compliance monitoring inspections, as well as inspection of dams under construction, because it will not be an ideal situation whereby most of the work will be done by an office located in Pretoria, when we can actually capacity in the regions. The department is working together and the directorate is working together with the organizational development chief directorate to look at the capacity challenges in those regional offices. Also, the issue of tailings dams. Currently we don't have expertise in tailings dams. The expertise that we have in the Dam Safety Regulation Office is mostly on dams, your normal dams that are dams storing water or bulk raw water. Now we are looking at capacity in the department with specialties or expertise in tailings, so that we can deal with the dams that I've already explained, that we have 337 dams in our database that we still need to look at to whether those dams must be registered as dams with safety risk, especially the tailings dams and the ice deposit dams. So we do need capacity there. Now, lack of capacity to evaluate dam safety evaluation reports. This is talking to the 474 dams that we have received but have not been able to assess them. We are also looking at appointing maybe a panel of engineers to try and clear the backlog as a temporary measure, so that once the backlog is cleared up and then we have enough capacity within the branch, then we can actually assess all the reports that we are receiving each and every year. But that will need us to clear the backlog, because currently now we are working creating more backlog as we are assessing dams that have been received in the past. The non-compliance of dam safety regulations by organs of state, especially the municipalities, that is what we are worried also about. We are thinking of studying the engagements with the COCTA department, the Department of COCTA, which is responsible for the municipalities, because most of them, they do cite the issues of financial challenges because they are not being able to generate revenue so that they can do what they need to do in terms of complying with the dam safety regulations, as well as rehabilitating those dams that have already been reported to having shortcomings. So maybe the Department of COCTA may assist such municipalities. With the Department of Water Sanitation, they do have what is known as the Dam Safety Rehabilitation Program. DDG Manas will be talking to that. It's a special program to address challenges that were actually reported with the APP reports, and then that special program, maybe it's something that COCTA may want to also duplicate and have a special program to address dams owned by the municipalities, so that they can be classified as dams that are safe. Now, transformation in the appointment of APPs, I have already spoken about it, that EXA is doing something about it in terms of establishing a new specified category called dam specialist, as well as the department amending regulations that makes it impossible for new APPs to apply and be approved. The issue of the mine residue deposit dams that are not registered, we have got 337, which I've already spoken about it. We now need to assess whether those dams, in terms of the materials that is currently being stored in those dams, can be regarded and registered as dams with a safety risk. That process will be carrying out that process. We may even have to go out because we don't have the tailings expertise in the department. We may have to go out to request assistance in the private sector so that we can do an assessment of the 337 dams. I think at this stage, I will be handing over to DDG Manas to carry on with the rest of the presentations. Thank you, honorable members and honorable minister.
Honorable Chair and honorable members, Minister, good morning to all of you. I will just continue then with the dam surveillance office, which resides under the operations and maintenance unit within the department, taking responsibility for, apologies for the typo, 323 dams, state dams, and this responsibility would be as owner. My colleague Wali Ramakopa spoke as the regulator, and as an owner of these large dams within the country, we take responsibility then also for the adherence to the dam safety regulations regarding these 323 dams. Now, a total of 22 structures were added since 1994 to this asset list. But we also need to take in cognizance of the fact that there are dams that we take responsibility for that dates back to the early 1900s, which means that the asset register is quite wide and a good mixture between very old dams and also some new dams. And therefore we do have a program called the Dam Safety Rehabilitation Program, because as far as the maintenance would be concerned, you maintain to when you find certain things that's not according to or plan, or you actually, or according to the operating condition, but you also then have to come to a point where you have to then rehabilitate. Now, this rehabilitation projects are identified by the dam safety evaluations, as well as the inspections that have to be done. Now, the difference between the evaluation and the inspections, as Wally have stated, that the evaluations are done on a 5-yearly basis, and the inspections are part of your operating philosophy of the department that needs to be done on a quarterly basis as well as on an annual basis. And the maintenance is then informed through these inspections. And if it comes to a point where there are certain aspects that need to be actually rehabilitated to restore the original condition of the structure, then we have to then evoke the Dam Safety Rehabilitation Program. Now, this program is actually there to also address all risks that is posed to the structural integrity or the lifespan of the dams that the department owns. And the principle is well set, and the department was also instrumental in the establishment with the International Conference on Large Dams, which I called. And our engineers within the department benefits from this conference, as well as what we then have in South Africa as the local one, in terms of SANCO, which is in the South African Conference on Large Dams. And so we are using this structure to actually ensure that our engineers are keeping in line with international best practices for our dam safety rehabilitation program. Now, in 2006, even though there were rehabilitation projects before that, in 2006 it was formalized in the form of an agreement with National Treasury, because it was understood that through the revenue that was earmarked then on the WTE to actually be then earmarked for maintenance, that it would not be adequate in certain instances to then fund the rehabilitation program, and therefore DSRP was included in the augmentation funding program through the National Treasury to ensure that the department has access to funds to do this rehabilitation project. Since then, 82 dams were earmarked for rehabilitation, but we've completed to date 43 of them, and successfully so. And through this whole program, we also provide a very good environment for graduate engineers to actually be exposed to design work, as well as the project management as far as the implementation thereof is concerned. And we've also seen through this program then that some of our colleagues have attained their professional status as well through the exposure that was rendered through this project. Now, under the leadership of one of our dam safety engineers that was also then unfortunately passed on, but through his leadership, we also developed internally a risk model, which actually means that we could then confidently prioritize certain structures for rehabilitation, because not everything identified in the evaluation report has to go immediately into rehabilitation. But this is the program that we are using, and this is also provided with the recommended timeframes for rehabilitation to be completed by then the approved professional person, as been mentioned by Wally. In the next slide, honorable members, you will note the current projects that are under construction. Now, in the area of the Nkarimeng Dam, we have the embankment. The embankment would be the part of the dam that actually keeps the water back and not necessarily having any spill, or shouldn't have any spilling happening in that area, and therefore we have to keep that safe. And certain work has to be done to actually ensure that the embankments are not, the integrity of that structure is not compromised. Therefore, work is being done, and then Nkarimeng Dam, as well as the tow drain, to ensure that any seepage that actually naturally occur, that it's actually being taken away and taken and controlled in a controlled measure, as well as a spillway where the water is then actually coming over the dam to actually, when it's really in flood conditions, we need to keep those components of the dam safe. And through the DSE, the evaluation report in Nkadimeng's case, that is what had to be done. And that had to be done at the cost of 3 million. And that project is now also earmarked for completion. Now, of the 5, you will see that at least 3 of the 5 would be completed still within this financial year, earmarked to complete it in this financial year. Not to go through all of them, but also just to mention also in terms of the case of Bloemhof, as you can see the picture on the top on your right-hand side, it's just a picture of the work that is happening there. Perhaps previously it was a good idea to have gabions to actually secure your embankment. It was found through the engineering expertise in the department, as found also measured with international expertise, that it need to be replaced. And that's the type of work that is currently happening to ensure that on long term, that the dams remain in a credible state and it remains safe. In the next slide, you will see then that there are 19 dams currently also under design phase, which is also most of them being done internally, where certain work has been identified to actually need to go into rehabilitation. And with the design team or the design engineers are now working on it to ensure that we get all of these design work completed, then to go into the implementation stage. In the next slide, you will see, honorable members, that we have then a list of the 43 dams that were completed as far as the rehabilitation project is concerned, were subjected to some level of rehabilitation. And that work was then completed up until last year. And then we also have to address what Wally have stated in the next slide regarding the dam safety evaluations. Now, obviously, this is just regarding the part of the top 20 dams has been raised out of the 323 that we take responsibility for. There are a number of them that are not compliant because of the fact that the dam safety evaluations are at this point in time overdue. The department or the regulator has indicated in writing also notification to the department to get this in compliance state. And as it is that the department at that point in time then also started getting a different point or a different, I hope I can still be heard, at a different then attack in terms of also trying to procure additional capacity. So I'll just go to the next slide to just explain what we will do to actually get our compliance plan in place. So it is our plan to have all dam safety evaluations completed by before the end of this financial year. We had a plan in place to actually, according to our annual performance target, for this specific task, we need to do 25 reports. 4 of them have already been completed and submitted to the Dam Safety Office. 10 inspections were completed and the reports are being worked upon to actually provide to the Dam Safety Office. We've also then taken the decision that the internal capacity is not adequate and that we need to then bring in additional capacity, APP capacity, to do some outsourcing to ensure that we are fast tracking our road to compliance, and contracts are ready to be, we are now finalizing the contracts to be signed before the end of this year, this month. And that will actually then also help us to then be compliant to get all the dam safety evaluation reports delivered to the Dam Safety Office by the 31st of March. Now, part of this acceleration plan will have the consequence that our new target for ourselves outside of the APP is then to have 34 dam safety evaluation reports completed and submitted to the Dam Safety Office, and that will be done. In the interim, though, the department is not that it's not in the know as far as the condition of our dams are concerned, because our operations and maintenance unit still have to continue their annual as well as quarterly dam safety inspections, and whatever is identified during that process to be then included into our maintenance program that has to then to also be addressed in that fashion. Now, previously all dam safety inspections or rather evaluations were done with internal APP capacity. Unfortunately, we became compromised due to the fact of retirements as well as resignations. And we have our learning academy that's assisting us to generate new capacity in the department as far as APPs are also concerned. That is also being looked at. And we perhaps have to be a little bit more aggressive in our retention strategy. But that is discussions that we have with our human resource unit to ensure that we, because we do regard outsourcing as a means to an end, but not necessarily sustainable throughout. So we are earmarking the fact that we want to augment our internal capacity to prevent the circle within 5 years to actually reoccur. At this point in time, I'll step down, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The next slides on Jagersfontein will be presented by Nkumeleng Mosekeni.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members of the committee, Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, members of top management, and our honorable colleagues. I will only cover the area of background, which gives the background to the issues there at the mining and then the water use license at Jagersfontein and the issues of compliance monitoring and enforcement. There are additional slides which are issues of post the incident in which are for information purposes. In terms of background, the diamonds were discovered in Jagersfontein in the 1868. There was open cast mining from the pit, which took place between 1871 and 1913. Between 1913 and 1917, there was underground mining, which took place. And then Jagersfontein obtained the ownership of the site and the tailings dams in 2010 from DBS. The current operations at the mine entails the processing of historical tailings facilities that were mined in the past. There was no new mining rights because the minerals were already mined and only the residue was left. And then in 2007, the Bloemfontein High Court declared that the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act of 2002 does not apply to all the South Africa's old mine dams. This meant that the DMR is not involved in the regulation of the operations, but they will have to issue a closure for historical mining rights for DBS. Next slide, please. In terms of water use license, the Jagersfontein developments applied for water use license on 10 October 2016. And then the department issued the water use license to Jagersfontein on 16 January 2018 with that license number, with a condition of disposal of waste in the fine tailings storage facility authorized at a capacity of 771,200 cubic meters per annum until 2020. Just to clarify a few things here, the license was not only for this disposal. That's why I said with a condition to disposal. The license was also including section 21A, which is abstraction of water for operations. They have few boreholes there and also some dams which they are abstracting water from. There was also 21B water use license for storing water. There are dams there which they are storing water in. Now then there is also section 21C, which is impeding or diverting the flow from water course, which is also a licensed water use. There is now 21G, which is now disposal of waste in a manner that may detrimentally impact on the water resource. This is the one that I'm going to focus on for the purposes of this engagement. And the last one was 21I, which is altering the banks, the river banks, and also the characteristics of a water course. So going forward, because the disposal were supposed to stop by December 2020 into the fine tailing storage facility, the department granted an extension on 19 April 2021 for disposing into the fine tailing storage facility until end of December 2021. But this is just an extension for that particular condition only, which had expired in 2020. Then there was further extension on 13 December 2021 for disposing into the fine tailings storage facility until end of June 2022, on condition that they submitted a dam safety inspection report on quarterly basis to the department. The reason why now we had added this condition, which was never there, is because Jagersfontein had already started to engage our dam safety colleagues to start with the engagements of the registering them with safety risk. So we felt that while that process is in the process, while that process is undergoing, the department then should put this condition when we issued this extension. And then we had reduced the disposal limit to 385,600 cubic meters per annum. This is half of the already original allocation of allowed volumes to the disposal volumes. Okay, the last extension was then granted on 20 June for the disposing into the fine tailings storage facility until end of September, meaning by end of September this year, that condition, or they are no longer allowed to dispose into that facility. It means they are licensed to dispose into the facility has expired completely. So then in the previous slide, I talked about the new condition for the dam safety reports. And then the Jagersfontein development submitted those two reports. They are dated May and July 2022. They were prepared by an engineering consulting company called MVD Kalahari Consulting, civil and structural engineers and town planners. The reports were looking at the inspection of visual condition of the fine tailings storage facility and the infrastructure installed to ensure that the capacity is functioning as intended. Both the reports confirmed that the stability of the fine tailings storage facility was found to be acceptable and in accordance with applicable guidelines and principles. So it means the reports that we received as a department, which are dated May and July, before the incident, had confirmed that the stability of the fine tailings storage facility was found to be acceptable. And then Jagersfontein Developments has applied for an integrated water use license on 16 March 2022. Like I said earlier, because they are already, there's the condition to dispose into the tailings storage facility has expired completely. It means even if they were to, there was no incident, it means they would have stopped because there's no license or permission for them to dispose. So the application for this integrated water use license was assessed and processed for signature, but currently it is on hold after the incident of 11 September 2022. Next slide. Now, this is the issue of compliance monitoring and enforcement. As a department, we have been monitoring compliance to the license conditions in Jagersfontein, and then some of the non-compliances which we identified and led to administrative enforcements are listed here in the table. There was some non-compliance of over-abstraction of water from various sources for operations. This is now, earlier I said, they were not only authorized for disposal, they were also authorized for in terms of taking water from a water resource. So we have, the department has issued a directive in August 2019 for them being over-abstracting from those sources. And then they submitted an action plan and which we evaluated. And then after that, then we issued a closure report to that particular directive in March 2022. And then the other one was unlawfully operating within a watercourse near the R704 without authorization. We have issued a notice for that and in August 2019. And then monitoring, they've submitted an action plan in which we are monitoring. And then we have since put on hold the issuance of directive because there is some level of compliance in terms of implementing the action plan. We have also issued another directive for failure to conduct an internal audit report for compliance to license conditions. that was issued in March 2020. So one of the license conditions was that they should conduct an internal audit report for compliance to all the license conditions, in which it was not done. But then after we have issued a directive, they did that internal audit report and it was submitted to the department, and then we issued a closure report to that directive. Now the last one is this one, which now relates to the issue of that incident which happened. We have issued a directive in December 2020 for disposing waste volumes above the authorized limits. So the directive was signed off in December 2020, but it was only issued in January 2021. Reason being, it was signed on the 22, which is just prior to the Christmas, and then the mine offices had already closed. So we issued it in January 2021 when they reopened, and then that was the closure report for that particular directive was issued in May 2021. Sorry, it's an era that is supposed to be May 2021, not 2020. But I'll explain more on this one on the next slide. Next slide. Yes, that directive of December 2020, it was not for dam safety issues, because that fine tailings storage facility was not registered as a dam with safety risk. Like I already indicated, that they started to contact the department in 2021 to start with the registration of that dam. So the directive was only for disposal of volumes above authorized limits. Then the Jagersfontein developments in that directive, they were directed to cease all aspects of operations relating to abstraction, as indicated in the water use license. It means they were supposed not to do any abstraction for mineral processing at all. They were supposed to cease all aspects of operation related to further disposing of any waste material on the fine tailings storage facility, as indicated in the water use license. So they are supposed not to dispose anything into that tailings dam. And then they were supposed to continue with the implementation of other requirements of the conditions in the license. So there are other conditions which they are supposed to continue to comply with, which are on the license condition, which are on the license. And then Jagersfontein developments, they had stopped operations from January 2021 when we issued a directive, and they only resumed in June 2021 after we have issued a closure report at end of May. The reason for the restrictions to be lifted, or the directive for us to issue a closure report to the directive, was that they submitted an action plan, the Jagersfontein developments, to correct the non-compliances. And they submitted the reports, which included the issue of installing the cyclones, which will improve their operations and reduce the disposal of volumes into the fine tailings storage facilities. And then now, because we have received an action plan as a department and we have assessed all the submitted reports and plans, we then issued a closure report to the directive. Then we start to monitor that they are complying with the action plan that was submitted. Compliance monitoring was continuously done in line with new volumes, like I said before. That then we then had to monitor compliance to the action plan. The volumes which were submitted in May 2022, they were compliant at this stage, because they were doing about 660,000 cubic meters per annum, which was below the amended limit of about 385,600 cubic meters per annum. Next. This is just to show the map. On the far left is a map prior or before the incident, and then the other one on the right-hand side is how far the slimes had affected the communities, or how far the slimes had gone after the incident. Next slide. This is just our water resources or the dams, the Forever Dam, Kalkfontein, and other water sources that are affected. Apologies, this thing is not that much clear, but this is just the water sources that are affected after the incident. Thank you. The other slides are just additional information post the incident of the 11 September 2022. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of the presentation, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Members, let me hear, Minister, is there anything you want to say before we engage? Okay. The minister might have gone or might have been gone already. I see the hand of, hello?
No,
Is that
I'm
the
fine.
minister?
Chair. Yes, no, I'm here. I'm fine, Chair. For
Oh,
now,
you're fine.
waiting for questions now. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Minister. I thought maybe you have already taken the apology side of the things. Okay, there are names that, there are hands that are up. It is the hand of Honorable Mushala, Honorable Leon, Honorable Tseki. In that order.
No, thanks so much, Chairperson. I've got a few questions here that I want to ask. They are as follows, Chair. What management techniques are used by the department to address sedimentation which affects dams? The second question, Chairperson, what challenges are encountered by the department in terms of issuing directive on non-compliance by the dam owners? How many directives has been issued in the last 2 years? And what was the outcome? Chairperson, the last question, the Jagersfontein spillage affected rivers, including the Reed River, that flows into Kalkfontein Dam, the Process Spruit, which supplies the Volvas Dam, and the Gromelen Boogspruit, which is tributary of the Reed River. The Kalkfontein Dam is the water supply source for several towns in the area and mainly used for agriculture. What is the cost of remediation of water sources polluted by the spillages from the Jagersfontein Dam best? Thank you.
Manuel Basson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you very much for the opportunity and the presentation. Chairperson, only 2 questions from my side. Firstly, the Clanwilliam Dam. Many years ago, I think it was somewhere around 2016, when there was a presentation on the Clanwilliam Dam at the dam, we were informed that the foundation, there is structural problems in the foundation of the Clanwilliam Dam, and with the hiring of 13 meters of the dam, they're also going to strengthen on the front of the dam, the foundation. What I need to know is whether that has changed, the risk whether the risk has changed whilst we are waiting for the completion of that dam. And then the second question is whether the department is having a team on the ground investigating illegal dams that's been built in the country, and if so, how many of these dams exist, and what is a process that the department is taking to legalize or fine or whatever the case may be on those dams. Thank you, Chairperson.
Manuel Tseki.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, what is interesting, probably we also, our oversight could also be questionable. This report, we are getting it after the incident of Jagerfontein. We are 3 years in that committee. We have never received such a detailed report. Now, the question is that why? Did it wait for this incident to happen for us to get this report? Or it's also the weakness on our own oversight reports that we should maybe check up probably and see other things that we may not have seen that are not reported or not in the public domain for now. So that's just my mind. It's not working well on that. The last one is the issue of Jagerfontein itself. What is the status of claiming? Is there any claims the department will put against the company in support of the community there? Or in terms of the requirements, the department would have done their oversight on the dam and they put the laws of dam safety accordingly? In particular, as the presenter is saying, there was an extension because Jagerfontein Development Company presented a corrective measure for correcting what the department disqualified them against. So, but at the end of the day, is there anything that the department will be assisting the community to claim based on the legality of what the department has in its disposal? Thank you.
I've seen the hand of Mama Siswai, but Honorable Secretary, just for the fact that in the report, the department are saying the Jagersfontein Dam was not necessarily identified as one of the risky ones, say for the fact that obstruction was seen to be more than the necessary thing, but the issue of it being a risk was not necessarily found to be. So maybe whether your question might want to say, does it mean that if the dam does not have risks, like the Jagersfontein one did not, are we not supposed to be just given the status of that dam, but not necessarily the risk part of it because it doesn't exist? And I'm saying your question might, if it can be amended, it will be better that we might find that we did not make a follow-up on it because it was not reported as it did not meet the risk part of the safetiness of the dam given the size of it. But your question still stands. Were we not supposed even just to be given the brown status of that dam? I mean, how many of those dams that are not of risk that exist that we need to take note of them rather than knowing about the risk? Ma'am Nancy.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, the leadership, the colleagues and officials. Thank you for this report. It's an alarming report, Honorable Minister. Alarming because you raise the issue of the functions of the department, that of regulatory and construction. Where there is no compliance legally, there's a high risk for the community of that particular area. And in terms of legal claiming or protection of the people, there's a high risk of these dams that do not comply, more especially from the privately owned. I hear that there is a case that is on now. I just want to check. It happened that there are other cases that have been there. Seemingly, are we winning? Are we winning? I ask the question because this issue is a transformation matter. You may have your asset of a dam, but it has got to comply to the human rights issues of the people of the country. Are you winning? Do we have success stories? I also hear that you are also engaging NPA. I'm not hearing the involvement of human rights as an institution that addresses issues of transformation in the matter. I hear that there are a lot of them in different areas, Mpumalanga, Western Cape, but it's important for us to get the winning part when they do not comply. Are we winning as a department? Because it is our responsibility to protect the people of this country. The last one, Chair, is the issue of, will it be illegal to audit all those that do not comply? And we make the country to know, publicize those that do not comply, and make the country to know. I raise the issue because also ourselves as people, we need to have our own protection on areas of high risk and where there's a damage. But if we do not know, we will think that that dam is also within the protection of government. Can't we do such audit and publicize those that do not comply? It's also a matter of saying, here's a democratic government with its constitution. All of us, we've got to be within the regulations of the department. I just wanted to check on that. The last one, Chair, I don't hear about a Butterworth Dam, which was to be constructed. The previous years it was raised. I may have missed of what has happened, but I know the dam is not there. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Two questions on my side, Minister. Generally, where the owner, be it the municipality, be it the mine, be it agriculture, say for department, does it show that it said in the body report to meet the requirement given them the unavailability of funds or skills, that the possibility of them meeting the standard of the dam and riskiness of it does not exist. Is the department empowered to retrieve those rights and take over the ownership of the dam? And if so, does the department automatically assume the status of being capable of rehabilitating and keeping the norms and standards of the dam? In the Jagersfontein matter, you start by saying the department, the Bloemfontein court at some point gave a judgment that in all the old mines, the department was not involved and therefore could not have been partook in everything that happened. Now, Jagersfontein is one of those. How is now the department getting involved when in actual fact, as per the judgment of the Bloemfontein court, the DMR was not involved? And what does that mean in the mines that have been there in the 1880s as the Jagersfontein one before 1994, where the department has been seen to not have been a party to those issues as it is raised. Thanks, Minister. We are now in your hands.
Chairperson,
Yes.
Minister has left for his other meeting. Makadzi is on the platform.
Okay. Mama Kazi, good morning.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, everybody.
I'm making, you have been here, Mama Kazi. You will have heard what we asked, and if not, it doesn't matter that the DG was here. You are still here to oversee the answers. It is acceptable, if indeed you were not necessarily part of the beginning of the meeting.
Chairperson, I've been in the meeting throughout, but I would like to give the opportunity to DG and the team to respond to the issues that have been raised by members. And having said that, I think it's important what Honorable Tseki has raised on matters, particularly of Jagersfontein, that it is important that we work with our sister department, because Jagersfontein, the sludge and the dam that really fell apart. We now talking to, I mean, it's issues that are resident in minerals department. And I'm saying this because we were talking about the issue of Sikororo also, that the dam of agricultural dam in Sikororo is one of those challenging dams, which actually the department is now instituting legal issues because the Department of Agriculture is not compliant. And it becomes very important, whether it's correctional services, mining, agriculture, it is important that we start working closer to them, because we don't know when is that dam in Khaskororo going to cave in. And by the way, there are communities downstream which actually will be affected by this. And without much elaborating on these matters, it is important that I give to the DG and the team to respond to the matters that have been raised by honorable members. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you, DM. I'd like to allocate certain questions to certain members of our staff. If I can ask Leonardo to start, please. If you can start with the questions by Honorable Moklala on what management techniques do we use to address sedimentation. Also the question about Plan William Dam. And the question about the high risks to communities. And the question about Tuawea from Honorable Sikwai. And then any other issues, Leonardo, that you'd like to address. And then I'll take others of our staff members after Leonardo. Leonardo?
Thank you, DG. As far as the question asked by Honorable Mutlala, I would like to say that in terms of the sedimentation of dams, the first thing that the department is doing, that through our water resource planning component, there's a unit there that's is responsible for sedimentation surveys, which they do on a regular program, which actually means that the survey unit would go to all dams and ensure that we actually have record in terms of what the sedimentation levels should be in dams. These sedimentation surveys are done at certain frequency, and the higher the rate of sedimentation, the higher the frequency of the surveys that is being conducted. Now, what the department has done with that information is to say that there need to be a certain response, because there was a feeling that we should invest a lot in dredging of these dams. However, what we decided to do is to engage our Water Research Commission and to get them on board and get some scientific means developed to not only influence the operations of these dams according to the sediment, or rather the suspended solid levels of the various catchments, but also to influence the way we operate releases of these dams, but also to influence in terms of what decision making we will do as far as capital expenditure to be in future to be informed as to where you will then raise dams if so required, or when you have to do some dredging, that you do it with some level of economic benefit to the community where it's being done, so that it shouldn't only be to the downstream users' cost through the tariffs that we charge for the water, then with what we will do this work. So that is the reason why we find the current work that's being done by the Water Research Commission as quite groundbreaking in this regard. And the expectations of deliverables is within a year that we will have something different in the hands as far as sedimentation management is concerned. We have a situation as far as the worst case in the country would be Valberg Dam in the Free State that has been sorted beyond 90%, but that was also seen by the department's engineers of way back that this is going to happen, and that's the reason why Knelpo Dam was constructed off channel to prevent the sedimentation, to also have the similar effect in that regard as far as the resources are concerned for Mangaung. So that is the type of work that the department is currently looking at within the sedimentation field. As far as the question asked by Honorable Passon regarding Clan William, you are correct, sir, that the foundation, that dam was rated quite low as far as the safety is concerned by our dam safety office, and we received a notification officially from Mr. Ramakopa's office in that regard. So it influenced the way that we are looking at the dam itself whilst we're doing this raising of the dam wall. The initial design has been that we should build the raising of the wall, extend the foundation significantly on the downstream side, and then through the gravity nature of the structure itself, that it will actually bring a stabilization to the structure the higher you go with the construction of it. But what is key at this point in time, noting the rating that we received, or the letter that we received from the regulator's office, it requires us to do more intensive geotechnical studies on the rock formations just downstream of the dam, directly downstream of the dam, before excavations can commence. And that was already now, we had on-site conversations with the approved professional person and the design team. And that geotechnical exploration is currently being done so that we can inform the APP, after which recommendations will be made if necessary amendments have to happen, as we will then proceed. We are still earmarking commencement of the work in January, February 2023 at the Clan William Dam. But this work that is currently happening now in terms of this geotechnical studies is to inform the aspects that you have just raised regarding the foundations of the dam. So that is currently being taken in consideration as we proceed with the project as stated. In terms of the high risk part of it, firstly, we have to, Honorable Nseki, that we have to say that we have to say that we are having our emergency preparedness plans in place, EPPs that we are, and there where it's not being updated or not completely in place as we'd like to do. We currently have a team looking at that, and that plan actually requires everyone downstream, strategic replaced authorities to be aware and in contact with our operators to understand what the status at the dam would be. So should there be any need for alarm to be raised, that plan would then kick into place where the operators would contact the necessary authorities downstream and actually inform the communities, the farmers, whoever is next to the embankment within the 1 in 100 flood year or the dam break analysis line, that they are being then informed to actually take the necessary evasive steps to prevent loss of life as far as possible. Also then in terms of the economy, in terms of structural damage and so forth, that could be prevented by removing pumps from the river, whatever the case may be. So that is the EPPs that's currently also in place, but also being worked at to actually be also upgraded. But in addition to that, our dam surveillance team, they're looking at all our dams, and where there would be high-risk dams, that they actually fit alarm systems to the dam, so that if there's a movement of the structure of a certain extent or displacements, that the alarm is then raised, and that is real-time monitoring to then inform and activate the EPP to ensure that there's a response to any alarm that is being set. In addition to that, we also have deflection surveys that is also conducted by the survey unit to ensure that the necessary monitoring or structural deflection monitoring is being done at certain points to ensure whether if there's any deflection that is out of the spec, that then the necessary action could be taken. In addition to that, we also have real-time 3D crack monitors, as well as TREVIC monitors that is also there to actually monitor displacement to ensure that there's a certain response also to what is being monitored. And that is the responsibility of our dam surveillance team that is also then responsible for the DSRP, which I presented as far as the dam safety rehabilitation program. In terms of Honorable Slawi, Honorable Nancy, then apologies for not pronouncing your name correctly. As far as the Butterworth Dam is concerned, we have the Gua weir there, and we also have the Kalinka Dam upstream. And in 2019, 2018, the drought went so severe there that the Kalinka Dam dropped to 0%. It actually hydraulically failed, as well as Gua weir also failed, and there was no water in Butterworth. There was decisions taken today. We are happy to report that both Gua weir as well as Kalinka Dam has been reported yesterday to be at 100% levels, which means that it's quite a good hydrological year for that area. However, that doesn't stop us from what we have to do. We have determined that the Gua weir is extremely silted, or the sedimentation levels are quite high. But when a cost-benefit analysis was done for that area, it was found to be that it would be the better option to raise the Gua weir and to get additional capacity. But when we rushed into the job and the exploration work was done, it was found that on the left embankment of the weir, which is an earthfall embankment, there was a weak spot that we just couldn't continue with what we expected to do. And different designs had to be undertaken, which the team internally is busy doing. So we are busy with the design work. And once the design work will be completed, that we will then go into the construction part of it. So it is that the department is unfortunately at this point in time cannot have any dust on the site as yet, but we are busy with the design work internally to ensure that we raise that dam, the Gua weir's wall, to the extent where we can regain or even increase the capacity of the dam, of the storage itself within Butterworth. DG, that would be my contribution for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask Polani and Wally to answer several questions. Firstly, there was a question asked by Honorable Sikwai about whether we're winning any cases where we've taken action. Secondly, there was a question asked by Honorable Mokhale as to what kind of challenges do we experience when we issue directives? How many have we issued over the last year and what have been the outcomes? Perhaps, Wally, if you could just, even if you don't have the detailed figures at your fingertips, we could provide the details later, but you could talk to it in the meantime in approximate numbers and give some examples of the outcomes. I think that would also relate to answering the question of whether we're winning any cases. And then also, Wally, there was a question about whether we are investigating illegal dams and what do we do about it when we find illegal dams. And then there was a question from the chairperson as to whether we intervene ourselves and take over and actually do physical work on the ground if the private sector doesn't comply with our directives. Over to you, Polani and Wally.
Thank you, DG and honorable members. Maybe to start with the issue of the non-compliance. We don't have it currently with me. We do have the numbers, but I don't have it at hand. Perhaps the number of directives that we've issued to non-complying dam owners, we can provide that when given a chance. And then in the question regarding the challenges in the issues of directives, we don't have challenges. We have the enforcement units in the provinces that assist us in the issues of directives. When it comes to whether are we winning, yes, we have some wins that we have registered. Just to give one of the examples, there is a dam in the Western Cape. It's called Tiruk Dam, where the dam had been constructed unlawfully, and we had taken a civil action, and the court fined the dam owner about 3.5 million rands for unlawfully constructing that dam, and directed the owner to submit a dam safety evaluation report that we have received, which indicates that the dam is not in good condition. And then we have now issued the directives for the owner to comply with the implementation of that. So we do have some wins that where we're struggling, it's actually on dams owned by organs of states, particularly dams owned by the municipalities. That is where we are having a challenge. We have been writing to a number of municipalities highlighting the non-compliance. One of them is as well as the dam in Khasikororo, Mets Dam, that belongs to another organ of state, which is the Limpopo Department of Agriculture. We have attempted to engage the HOD and then we have failed. Hence now we have moved to a much harsher stage of opening a criminal enforcement case with the SAPS. So those are where the challenges are. When it comes to privately owned dams, those are, we find them quite easy to actually manage, and we have some challenges. We don't have challenges with that. With the issue of the Human Rights Committee, we have not engaged the Human Rights Commission on the challenges that we are highlighting, but it's something that we can take forward. We can take that as a welcome advice to do that. The audit of all non-compliant dams, we do have that audit. We have the numbers. That is the same number that we have already referred to our enforcement colleagues for actions to be taken. What we have not done was to issue a public report. But in the current financial year, in our operational plan, we are intending on publishing an annual dam safety report. So each and every year, we will be publishing an annual dam safety report for public consumption, so that the public can be made aware of the dangers that lies upstream of their households where the dams are located, especially those dams that are found not to be safe. What we've also learned through our engagements with international colleagues, such as in ICODE, it is the simulation of the emergency preparedness plans. We have not in the country actually conducted a dry simulation of a dam failure. Just with contacting our disaster management agencies, the police, the emergency services, just to simulate what will happen should a dam failure come. If we contact them, we need to do a dry run. So that in other countries, it has been done. It is something that we have also learned that we need to be starting to implement it, particularly on the dams that has been classified as high risk with high hazard potential rating, as well as maybe the installation of early warning systems into our dams, because we have different types of dams. We've got earth dams, we've got concrete dams. Other dams, it's easy to install an automated early warning systems, as we may be installing systems that can actually report remotely to us and the dam owners when there is unusual movement of the dams. It's dams such as your embankment dams that we may have a challenge with early warning systems, but we are willing to investigate that. And then if it comes to a push, then we may also have to make it mandatory for early warning systems, particularly on large dams, to be installed and then be tested on as often as possible. In the question regarding whether the department is empowered to take over a dam, I have two examples. There is a dam in Grafreinet, Nueva Dam. It used to be called, I forgot the old name. That dam is currently being owned by the Dr. Beyasno DM municipality. Some years ago, that dam, the operation and control of the dam was handed over to the department, as the municipality at the time indicated that they don't have enough funds to make the dam safe. So the dam was handed over to the department so that the department can include that dam in the dam safety rehabilitation program to make the dam safe. And then after the dam was handed back to the municipality, there is another dam in Mpumalanga, Edinburgh Dam, which the department took over. It is now a departmental dam because the owners of the dam, I can't remember who the owners were. I think it was the Department of Agriculture as well. It's in Mpumalanga. Then the dam currently now is part of the departmental dam. So I think through the immovable asset management processes that department has, the department can take over, especially dams that serve the community as for potable water supply. A dam like Mets Dam in Khasukororo, it is currently being owned by Agricultural Department, but it is not serving, it is not benefiting the Department of Agriculture. It is mostly being used for potable supply. So that is an example of a dam that can actually be handed over by the department, to the Department of Water and Sanitation, because it provides bulk water to the community. So in terms of a dam that is owned by a public entity, a private entity, where there is a danger of that dam failing and causing loss of life, the Act empowers the minister in terms of Section 118 to actually do the necessary work to ensure that the dam is safe so that we can prevent loss of life, and then after recoup the cost of making that dam safe from the owner of the dam. So yes, the answer to that question is that yes, the minister is empowered to do that. In terms of how is the department getting involved on Jagersfontein, Jagersfontein, when it was brought to the attention of the dam safety office, especially the storage capacity as well as the height, at the time in December, the dam was not registered as a dam with a safety risk. It is only around December when it was brought to our attention, especially the storage level and in the height, that we became aware of that dam not being registered and meeting the requirements to be classified as a dam with a safety risk. We immediately engaged the engineers representing the mine to inform them of the requirements, and the dam was classified and registered only in April this year. Unfortunately, before more work could be done on a dam classified as a Category 3 dam, the unfortunate incident of the September 9/11 incident happened. In terms of the number of illegal dams that we have now, the ones that we know of, we've got 14 dams that were found to be illegal. Most of them, more than 95% of them, in the Western Cape, particularly the Breda-Horwitz catchment management agency in that area. We have already issued directives to those owners. And then I can say now, almost all the owners have now approached the department to find a way forward on how to legalize those dams. Those that have been found to not be compliant to the best engineering practices, those will have to be demolished because they pose a danger to the downstream communities. And it is also unfortunate that most of the dams as well were actually properly designed by an approved professional person, a person in our register of APPs. So the owners came to us indicating that they were ill-advised on the processes. But as far as the design is concerned, we have gone through the design reports, and then we are now also doing extensive investigations on the already constructed dams to check whether those dams have been constructed using the best engineering practices, and those that have not will have to be demolished, and the other ones we may condone them to be registered because some have been issued with Chapter 4 water use licenses. Those that don't have a authorization license to store or to, in terms of Section 21B, they also have to be demolished. In terms of the question talking about the DSE presentation, yes, this one I think this DG, the question coming from Honorable Tseki about why is the department now doing this presentation? I think that I will want to leave to you, DG, to respond. Those are the questions that I can answer that I remember at the moment. The issue of the sedimentation, I think that has been covered by DG Manas, but obviously most of the dam owners that are experiencing dams to be highly, have got high sediment load. Some they come to us requesting permission or options on what can be done on those dams, whether dredging is something that can be considered vis-a-vis the raising of the dams. Obviously, if there is a dredging exercise that needs to be done, there will have to be a license to be issued, because we wouldn't want a dam to be dredged, especially closer to the structural, to the foundations on the upstream, whereby it may weaken the foundation. So we really need, we also need an application for a license to alter a dam or to repair, to be submitted to us so that we can evaluate the methods that will be carried out in terms of removing the high sediment or the dredging exercise. Those who are not favoring the dredging options, they also have an option to raise the dam so that they can restore the original storage capacity of their dam. Also, in addition to the Jagersfontein, the department has now is in the process of appointing an independent panel of experts, especially on kimberlite tailings, that will be conducting an investigation, a forensic investigation on what was the cause of the failure of the Jagersfontein. And that report will be also obviously will be forming part of the prosecution processes. We will want to treat that as an independent report without undue involvement of both the department as well as the mines. I think that is what I can respond to now, DG, unless if there's any other questions that I may have missed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wally. Thanks very much, Wally. Colleagues,
DG,
yes,
before we move off this response, a question by Honorable Tseki was, what is the status of us being sued or us suing the mine having that of what happened at Jagersfontein?
Wally?
Thank you, DG and Honorable Chairperson. I think with the investigation that will be carried out, a lot will be coming out to see also what was the compliance levels and what was the responsibilities of both government and the dam owner. Without maybe prejudging the case, we may have a claim in terms of the damage that has been caused downstream. A lot of houses has been lost, infrastructure has been lost. So there is, I think, a case that the department or government can actually institute against the mine, regardless of the fact that there might be also an action class case that the community as well as the municipality is also looking into. So the investigation will unfold a lot of things, especially the compliance from the mine site, because the report that was submitted to the department, the so-called dam safety inspection report, was not a report compiled by an approved professional person. It was done by, as my colleague has indicated, a company called MVD Kalahari Report. But the consulting firm is not a person, it's not an APP. It needs to be done by an approved professional person, a person, not a company. So we approve APPs looking at the expertise and the experience of that person to be able to evaluate a dam and check compliance. We don't know much about this Kalahari report. It was not submitted in terms of Chapter 12 of the National Water Act, so it never made it to the Dam Safety Office. Thank you, DG.
Thank you, Wally. There's another question on Jagersfontein as well about the rivers affected by the collapse of that dam and the impact that it's having on water supply in the area, including the Carlfontein Dam. I don't know if, Wally, you would like to answer that, or perhaps our colleagues in the Free State Regional Office would like to come in and answer it. Nkomaleng,
Yeah.
or Wally, do you want to have a go first?
Yes, let me have a go first, DG, and then I will hand
Okay.
over to colleagues in the Free State. Yes, the Red River, which is the river supplying Kalfontein Dam, within some few hours of the dam failure, actually Kalfontein Dam the level had risen to about 102% from below 100. So that clearly indicates that there is some sludge that has already entered the Red River. Starting also with the Volvas Dam, there is a dam, I can't remember the name of the river before Kalfontein, which is a tributary, was also overtopped. Fortunately, the dam, Volvas Dam, it is a concrete dam, it's not an embankment dam. So there was an impact there. And then I think I will give to colleagues in the Free State to also maybe add. Thank you, Director General and colleagues.
Nkomaleng or Dr. Ntili, do you want to come in on this one?
Thank you, DG, and good morning once more. In terms of the affected rivers and the dams, I would first like to indicate that the issue of rehabilitation, it's happening. They've categorized all the affected areas in terms of zones. Zone 1 will be covering between the fine tailing storage facility and the R704 road, and then Zone 2 will cover the inner nation zone gradient, down gradient of the R704 road to the inlet of the Volvas Dam, and then Zone 3 will cover only the Volvas Dam, and then Zone 4 will cover the Volvas Dam to the existing weir in one of the farms at Process Sprate, and then Zone 5 will cover the weir from in one of the farms there to the low-level crossing of another farm in Process Sprate, and then Zone 6 will cover the level crossing to the first low-level crossing on the Cromeland Walk Sprate, and then Zone 7 will cover the low-level crossing to the reed beds in Reed River at the headwater of the Kalkfontein Dam, and then Zone 8 will be Kalkfontein Dam itself. Just to mention that we are working, there's an IGR structure including other entities and government departments, including the University of Free State, where they are assisting in terms of us assessing this rehabilitation plan and to ensure that the water quality that is affected, whether it's still suitable for human consumption or for the farmers or for irrigation purposes. So we are working as a team, but just to give certainty to say, in terms of Kalkfontein Dam, the levels of water quality there at Kalkfontein Dam for now are acceptable for human consumption, as they are being abstracted by Bloom Water to service the Kopanong local municipality in terms of drinking water. So I can confirm that. But then, like I said, there are a lot of specialists that are appointed to deal with the issues of rehabilitation. They range from water chemistry, groundwater specialist, ecologists, river and wetlands ecologists, diatom ecologists, invertebrate ecologists, fish ecologists, geochemists, pedagogy. A lot of them, I cannot just list all of them. It's a lot of them that are assisting in terms of this, but they are led by SRK, and then the mine is the one that is paying for the rehabilitation. Maybe DG, there was another question, where do we feature in as a department after the High Court of the Bloemfontein High Court has declared that just to clarify, to say it is not the DWS that they are saying it should not be involved. It is the DMR, because the old tailings dams does not require new mining rights. So it means the DMRE or the DMR is not supposed to be involved, because they are working on the old tailings dams. So the DWS is involved because there are water use activities, because for them to process the minerals, they are supposed to abstract water for mineral processing. And then also they are supposed, in terms of discharging, the water is waste into their fine tailings storage facility. It requires a license in terms of authorization, in terms of 21G of the National Water Act. That's where the department comes in. The department is not bad by the High Court of Bloemfontein. It is only the DMRE to say they don't require the new mineral rights to work on those old tailings dams that are there. I think I would have covered those two questions, DG. Thank you, and Chairperson, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mkhumbulang. Final Chairperson, Honourable Teki's question about our reporting to Parliament on the dams. Of course, we are available to report at any time on all of this information, but I think we would probably need to consult with you about how we report periodically on the dams. As indicated by Wally in his presentation, there's almost 6,000 registered dams in the country. So there's a huge amount of information, but maybe we could look at periodic reporting on dams above a certain defined risk level, for example. Thank you, Chair.
Though you are not responding to the question I raised about the fact that at some point the Bloemfontein court did give a judgment. How are we responding to that?
Mkhumbulang, do you want to come in on that one?
Thank you, DG. The issue of the High Court, it was only focusing on the Department of Mineral Resources to say their act, which is the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act, it does not apply to the old mining dams because it is they already mined, and then they're only working on the residue which was left. So it was not bearing the Department of Water and Sanitation in terms of getting involved. It is only the DMR to say, DMR, those tailings dams, they don't require a new mining rights. So only the Department of Water and Sanitation comes in because the issue of processing those minerals requires water, which in terms of abstracting, and again, in terms of disposing those waste after they have cleaned those minerals. So that's where the Department of Water and Sanitation comes in. But the Department of Water and Sanitation is not listed into that court judgment. It is only DMR to say they don't require new mining rights to work the old tailings dams. Thanks.
Okay, no thanks, I hear you. Honorable Seki, I see your hand is still up.
Okay.
What are you saying, Seki? Seki? Is it, okay. It was a legacy hand. Okay. Thank you very much.
Hey, Chair, sorry, I don't know what's happening. Sorry. Can you hear me, Chair? I think it's my apology. No, Chair, I was saying, I just want to add what the department is going to do. My proposal is that, can the department give us a report on a possible claim or no claim on the disaster that has happened at Jagersfontein? That's in short, Chair.
Yeah, given the response on your question that they've already appointed someone to make those assessments and so forth and so on. So that please, that at the end of that assessment, let us be sure that we are not going to sit with a bigger claim, or are we not going to be seen claiming so much? That's fine. Mama Katsi, your parting shot. Deputy Minister Makatsi. DG.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson, for the opportunity. We always benefit from the engagement with the Portfolio Committee because you help us identify things that we need to pay more attention to and where our weaknesses are. So we appreciate the opportunity and we're always available to account. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Go to the second, following agenda item, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. Nosipo,
Yes, Chairperson.
let's flag the minutes. Thank you very much, DG and the department. We appreciate the report. The minutes are as flighted, colleagues. It is the minutes of the 25th of October, 2022. They were sent to us, these minutes. Let's go page by page and see whether I want to raise something out of them. Just flag them page by page, Nosipo.
It's page 1, Chairperson. Now going to page 2, attendance. Introduction, opening remarks and presentation by the Department of Water and Sanitation. Page 3, observations. Closing remarks, the meeting agenda at 11:07.
There are members, anyone who want to say something from them? If we agree on them, can we move the adoption and adopt the minutes, please?
I move for the adoption.
Is that Honorable Mshala?
Ready?
Okay. I get a seconder.
Can I second the adoption, Chair?
Thank you very much. The second set of minutes. Why did we start with the minutes of the 25th of October, then go back to the 18th?
Chairperson, they are not in particular order.
They should be on particular
Yes,
order.
Chairperson, I apologize for that, but today I have some issues with my laptop.
Okay. Okay. Let's take us through page by page.
This is page 1, Chairperson. The agenda was the consideration and adoption of the draft report of the Committee on the Budgetary and Recommendation Report of the Department of Water and Sanitation and entities for the 2021 and 2022 financial year, and the consideration and adoption of outstanding minutes. And then this is attendance by committee members, the officials, and the parliamentary support staff. Here is the introduction and the adoption of the report, consideration and adoption of outstanding minutes, closing remarks by the chairperson, the meeting adjourned at 10:24.
Thank you very much. There are the minutes, members. If you want something, whoever want to raise, just raise. If not, let's do as we did with the first one.
Adopt, Chair.
Thank you very much. Moved by Honorable Seki.
Second, by myself.
Myself is
Medi,
okay. Thank you very much. Second by Honorable Peterson. The minutes are all adopted.
No, Chairperson. The
But
minutes
why-
of
why-
the 11th.
You remember I said to you in the last minutes, is the minutes that are outstanding? You said no, but now you are giving 3 sets of minutes.
We
You see,
meant, Co-Chairperson,
you
I
said
said
no
yes.
that in the last minute.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
We meant-
yeah, I'm wrong. I'm just wrong.
Yes.
I'm just wrong. I'm using mental approach on the wrong things.
Mm.
So now we are going back to the 11th of October.
Yes, briefing by the Auditor General. Briefing by Auditor.
Is it you whose mic is on? Okay.
Briefing by Auditor General South Africa on audit outcomes of the department and entities for the 2021 and 2022 financial year. Briefing by the Department of Performance Monitoring and Evaluation on assessing the work of the Department of Water and Sanitation and entities for 2021 and 2022. Attendance by committee members. Everybody was present. Officials and guests in attendance list. Parliamentary support staff. Introduction, presentations, observations, consideration and adoption of committee program term 4 of 2022. Closing remarks, adjournment, the meeting adjourned at 12:31.
There we are, members.
Agreed, Chairperson.
I support the agreement.
Moved by Honorable Seki, seconded by Honorable Sifai.
There's the next one. Remember, Chairperson, we had 2 meetings on that day on the 11th. Now this is the second session. The meeting that started at 2 o'clock, briefing by the department and Trans-Caledon Tunnel Authority on the 2021-2022 financial statement and annual report. Attendance by committee members, officials and guests in attendance. Introduction, presentations, observations, closing remarks, Chairperson. The meeting adjourned at 1800 hours.
Members.
Propose the adoption of the minutes, Chair, as they are.
Mam Sifai moves.
Peterson second, pre-adoption.
The last ones are the minutes of the 13th. We had a meeting on Thursday afternoon.
The 13th of what?
13th of October, processing of the PRRR report.
No. You must
13
stop
October 2022, on a Thursday, briefings by the entities undertaking work on behalf of the Department of Water and Sanitation on their annual reports and financial statement for 2021-2022. Yeah, Chairperson, this meeting, we had Priya de Horitz, Inkomati Usutu and Water Research Commission.
Yeah, the point I'm making, you are not serious in wanting to present these minutes. You can't do what you're doing. Go to October, September, then October, then to September. We don't seem to be serious.
Chairperson, I was still opening the minutes. My apologies, and you were already.
You were not prepared for this meeting. Okay, you are saying this is the minutes of the 13th of October.
Yes, Chairperson. The agenda was briefings by the entities undertaking work on behalf of the Department of Water and Sanitation on their annual reports and financial statements for the 2021 and 2022 financial year. The entities were Priede Horix Catchment Management Agency, Ingomati Usutu Catchment Management Agency, and Water Research Commission.
Yes, members. Oh, you are now presenting. Page by page.
Yes. There was attendance by committee members. Only Mr. Hendricks was not present. Officials and guests that were there. Parliamentary support staff, introduction by you, Chairperson. Then there were briefings by the three entities. Observations, closing remarks. The meeting adjourned at 16:31.
There we are, members.
Propose the adoption, Chair.
Honorable Secretary.
Yep.
Any seconder? Mom's Fly moved, and any seconder?
I second for the adoption, Peterson.
Okay. Seconded by Ma'am Peterson.
The next agenda item, Chairperson, is your closing remarks. We are done with the minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm sure the next time we need to start with the minutes, because that when we go deal with the minutes, our concentration is no longer there. And it's important that we know what we have passed. So in the next meeting, start with the minutes. Let's adopt the minutes and get to the report. Because we are creating an impression that the minutes are not important for the committee. They are important because those are resolutions of what you are taking, and they must be taken serious as a matter of principle. So in the meeting coming, let's start with the minutes, because you remember in those minutes that the department are still part and parcel of the meeting. Most of the time, as we finish their report, they leave the meeting, so the minutes becomes minus them, which is a problem. They might want to raise issues in the content, and I'm not implying they are gone now, but I'm saying most of the time they are gone, and we pass the minutes in their absence. Let's start with the minutes next time.
Noted, Chairperson.
Well, having said that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair.